Hello, I am Anna and welcome to another bookish video. I just finished filming a different video, but I changed shirts and then stayed in the same location so that it might not be like as obvious, except that I'm opening this video telling you, so I guess it is pretty obvious. But that was the tier ranking video, so if you haven't watched that one, feel free to head there afterwards. Today's video, we will be determining what my favorite book of 2022 was. And how we are going to do that is a little single elimination bracket style. All of this being said, I read 70 books, at least so far this year. It's not quite the end of the year yet. And so we're not going to talk deeply about all of them, just enough to figure out, which one's going to be the ultimate reigning champion. And in future videos that I have planned, we will, discuss a little bit more, start reading some new books, which I'm very excited about. And without too much more intro, because I'm sure I'm already going to talk way too much in this video and it's going to be way longer than it needs to be. Okay, welcome to my bracket. As you can see, because there's kind of an odd number, we have some little preliminary rounds to see who actually gets to compete. And I totally randomized how these books are going up against each other. Starting with The Fountains of Silence, The Lions of Little Rock. The similarities these two have, they're both historical fiction. The Lions of Little Rock is a middle grade novel. Fountains of Silence is young adult novel. Lions of Little Rock take place in Little Rock, Arkansas in the 1950s or 60s, one of those. Fountains of Silence takes place under the Spanish dictatorship and also the same time period. Oh, that's kind of crazy. How did it know that? Out of these two though, The Fountains of Silence. Going down to the next preliminary round, People Person versus The Guest List. People Person was a little contemporary fiction about half siblings, a family kind of figuring out their relationships together. The Guest List is a thriller taking place on a little island and it's a wedding, and I feel like it was just much more of an experience than People Person was. The Guest List wins. Between 28 Summers and Local Woman Missing, I feel bad that Local Woman Missing would have to go be eliminated this soon, but 28 Summers was a 5-star for me. Local Woman Missing was a 4-star. I just feel like the journeys they took me on were different, in which 28 Summers really just takes the cake. Final Girl Support Group versus The Roundhouse. I did not enjoy the Final Girl Support Group quite at all. It definitely is not going to be making it into my favorite, so just kind of by default, The Roundhouse is going to be winning. People We Made on Vacation versus Hola Papi. These are very hard to compare. People We Meet on Vacation is a romance by Emily Henry. Hola Papi was a memoir. Both of them were a little bit mid for me, but People We Meet on Vacation is going to win in this case. It Happened One Summer versus, oh, see, the randomness, somehow I feel like it already knew. I didn't like either of these books. It Happened One Summer is a romance. Tessa Bailey, I feel like you probably know it. I just didn't enjoy it, but Quiet was a book that was nonfiction about like the importance that introverts hold in this world. And I kind of mentioned this last video, but it spent a lot of time being like, introverts, just because you are introverted doesn't mean you don't matter. I was like, yeah, you're right. I already knew that. So I think It Happened One Summer, even though I feel like it's probably going to get eliminated next round. We'll see. Okay, round 2, speed round. These Silent Woods versus The Fountains of Silence. I don't want to have to do this. It's not supposed to be hard yet. It's going to be These Silent Woods. Perks of Being a Wallflower, Firekeeper's Daughter. Definitely Firekeeper's Daughter. I enjoyed it. I just didn't really enjoy The Perks of Being a Wallflower quite at all. Purple Hibiscus, Hotel Nantucket. That's another easy one. It's going to be Hotel Nantucket. Under the Whispering Door versus The Speckled Beauty. Now, I did not really enjoy either of these, but I definitely enjoyed Under the Whispering Door more than Speckled Beauty. The Speckled Beauty is like a memoir about how much we love dogs and about a man and his dog, so it's sweet, it's cute. It just wasn't my favorite. The Scent of Burnt Flowers versus I'm Glad My Mom Died. Super different books, but I'm Glad My Mom Died definitely has to make it beyond the second round. Fractured, which is a crime novel that takes place in Atlanta by Karen Slaughter, versus Profit and Punishment, which is a nonfiction book about mass incarceration. Now, how do we compare those at all? Dang, I thought the hard part was going to be coming towards the end. See, I was thinking like if we're going to do it by if I would recommend them to people, I would recommend both of these to people, to be honest. I feel like Profit and Punishment I would recommend to people because I feel like you have to read this because you have to know this information about mass incarceration, which is very different than wanting to recommend Fractured because I'm like, I really enjoyed this book. It read like an episode of Criminal Minds and I think you would enjoy it too. So I feel like for that reason, Fractured is gonna have to win. I'll Give You the Sun versus Firefly Lane. Both of these were cute, relatively lighthearted. I'll Give You the Sun is about 2 teens. Firefly Lane is about 2 teens who grow up into adults, and I really enjoy following characters as they get older, so for that case, Firefly Lane. The Best of Me versus Wake. The Best of Me is David Sedaris's like best top hit little humor essay type deals, whereas Wake is a little mystery thriller taking place in the Australian outback. Wake wins. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings versus The Guest List. Those are also very weird to compare. That's Maya Angelou's autobiography versus a thriller. I am gonna have to go with Maya Angelou's autobiography, just in, I guess in the sense sense again of like recommending it to people, but also with how much I enjoyed it. I think I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings would also win in that case. Now this round, Memoirs of a Geisha versus Whiteout, two like opposite end of the spectrum books. Memoirs of a Geisha is a historical fiction that is taking place in Japan and is written by a white man. Whiteout is a collection of short stories about teens and falling in love, and it's 6 Black authors who came together to create these stories, and it really is just a celebration of Black joy, and it was very cute. It was a very pleasing read, so I really don't have to think about that one all that much at all. Nora Goes Off Script versus One Last Stop. I'm gonna go with One Last Stop just because it's more interesting of a romance. Nora Goes Off Script was a cookie cutter romance, which sometimes is fun to read, but it's not. You know, you could read a lot of different books that would give you the exact same story and feeling that Nora Goes Off Script did. Then She Was Gone, Crying in H Mart. I did not enjoy Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. That's a thriller that I knew the ending by like page 25. Did not enjoy it. Crying in H Mart wins there. Look, I feel like my memoirs are winning. Have we gotten rid of many memoirs yet? Oh, they keep putting my good ones together. Alias Emma versus 28 Summers. Just off the bat, I do think 28 Summers is going to win, but I hate to eliminate Alias Emma this quick because I really enjoyed that book. I really enjoyed that book. And it was different than a lot of books that I've read. Like, it was very different, but 28 Summers just gave me a different type of feeling. Cultish versus The Family Upstairs. I feel like it is some very smart AI that put these together because The Family Upstairs involves a cult, but it is a kind of thrillery fiction story, whereas Cultish is nonfiction about cults. That feels very strange. What website am I using and how does it know me? Family Upstairs wins though. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder versus Wish You Were Here. It's gonna be Wish You Were Here that wins. Wish You Were Here is the most shocking book that I read this year at all. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was good. It was good. And it really got me back into reading at the beginning of the year, so I feel like moment of silence for A Good Girl's Guide to Murder elimination. Okay, Wish You Were Here wins. Bad Fat Black Girl, Notes from a Trapped Feminist versus The Riviera House. The Riviera House is going to be making it at least, like, I feel like it's #1 seed, if not #2 seed, to be honest. Bad Fat Black Girl was a really good book, but The Riviera House just has to win, has to take the cake. The Marrow Thief versus The Roundhouse are both pieces of indigenous literature. This is kind of spooky because I clicked random. Between the two, I do enjoy The Roundhouse better, and it's because The Marrow Thieves is speculative fiction, whereas The Roundhouse took place in the past, and speculative fiction stresses me out. Adult Children of Immature Parents versus Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I don't even have, like, Home Before Dark wins. The Golden Couple versus The Wilder Women. These are quite different books. So The Golden Couple is a thriller that I enjoyed reading, but then the ending just really fell flat for me. It did not feel complete for me. The Wilder Woman is a beautiful, like, magical realism about 2 sisters whose mom had left them 5 years earlier, but they don't really feel like she wanted to leave them, and so they go on a little road trip across the country to find out what actually happened to her. Both of them also have kind of, not superpowers, but like kind of sixth sense type deals, and it's very beautiful with like nature and the magic, like I said, so Wilder Woman is going to win this one. Prison by Any Other Name and The Rose Code, those don't feel fair to compare to each other. I really enjoyed The Rose Code. I also really enjoyed Prison by Any Other Name, and I feel like it's a very needed book. I would recommend Prison by Any Other Name before I would recommend The Rose Code, I think. For very different reasons. I would recommend them very differently. But Maniac Magee versus A Thousand Splendid Suns. Both of these are juvenile/YA. I'm gonna go with Thousand Splendid Suns though. Maniac Magee is cute but not emotional, whereas A Thousand Splendid Suns like hits you deep inside the heart. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, anything is going to win against that. So The House Across the Lake is definitely going to win against that. The Click versus Carrie Soto is back. That is a hilarious pairing. Carrie Soto is back. Starfish versus One True Loves. Very different books. One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid is going to win. The Woman They Could Not Silence versus People We Meet on Vacation. Very different books. The Woman They Could Not Silence is definitely going to take the cake. People We Meet on Vacation was mid to me, and I feel like I almost need to reread it just to give it a different chance now that I know that I really like Emily Henry, but when I read it this year, was not a favorite. Oh, now that is not fair. That's not fair. I'm gonna have to go Book Lovers, but A Moment of Silence for Redeeming Justice's elimination. I hate that that got eliminated. I love that book. I love that book. The fact that Firefly Lane is making it further than Redeeming Justice. The Four Winds versus Woman on Fire. the Four Winds. A Summer of Broken Rules versus A Flicker in the Dark. Now this is like happy fun story versus dark fun story. I'm gonna go dark fun story. Triptych versus It Happened One Summer. I'm gonna have to go Triptych, but I don't really feel good about doing that. Rock, Paper, Scissors is going to lose against anything, but then especially against The Things We Cannot Say. The Identicals versus The Love Hypothesis. It's gonna be The Identicals. Both of them were relatively mid, but The Love Hypothesis was more mid. And then you can't see all the way down there, so I apologize for that. But Conversations with Friends versus Winter in Paradise. Winter in Paradise is by Ellen Hildebrand. Conversations with Friends I think is going to win, but I don't see it making it past this round all that much. Okay, round 3, and I'm gonna try to start talking less so we can really get going. These Silent Woods versus My Firekeeper's Daughter. These Silent Woods. The Hotel in Nantucket, that isn't easy, over Under the Whispering Door. I'm Glad My Mom Died versus Fractured. Heck. I could definitely see Fractured making it to the final round, and I don't, like in my vision of my favorite book of 2022, I just don't see I'm Glad My Mom Died being there. I don't really know if I see Fractured being there either, but for now I just gotta go with that. Wake. Oh, this is tough. I'm gonna go with Whiteout, and the reason for that being that I think it is a lesser known book, and I wanted to make it further because in my head that's like giving it more voice. We're gonna say that. Because I feel like I know why the Caged Bird's saying like that's a known book. That's a known book by now. One Last Stop versus Crying in H Mart. Crying in H Mart. 28 Summers takes the cake. Wish You Were Here, The Riviera House. Oh, I wish I didn't have to get rid of Wish You Were Here, but The Riviera House it struck something deep inside me. The Roundhouse versus Home Before Dark. It's gonna be Home Before Dark. The Wilder Woman versus Prison by Any Other Name. Even though I'm eliminating it, I need you to read it. Read Prison by Any Other Name, but The Wilder Woman is winning. A Thousand Splendid Suns versus House Across the Lake. A Thousand Splendid Suns is a hard book, whereas I feel like The House Across the Lake, well, no. A Thousand Splendid Suns is winning. How did we end up with 2 Taylor Jenkins reads right next to each other? See, there's some sort of AI happening here, but Carrie Soto is back. I definitely enjoyed One True Loves is Taylor Jenkins Reads backlist, so it's maybe like 2016 is when it was published, whereas Carrie Soto's back is this year's. I enjoyed it more. The Woman They Could Not Silence, oh gosh, versus Book Lovers. Book Lovers is going to win, but read The Woman They Could Not Silence. That author has another book too, that's I think called The Radium Girls. That's like a similar setup and format. Honestly, it probably needs to be on my 23 to read in 2023. I think I'm gonna put it there. If I forget to put it there, let me know. Four Winds versus A Flicker in the Dark. Gonna be A Flicker in the Dark. Triptych versus The Things We Cannot Say. It's gonna be The Things We Cannot Say. See, okay, this round has been a little bit easier. The Identicals versus Conversations with Friends. It's gonna be The Identicals. I felt uncomfortable reading Conversations with Friends, whereas I felt like I was in a different world when I read The Identicals, and I really enjoyed that. These Silent Woods versus The Hotel Nantucket. Now we're back in the hard round. Go golly gee. These Silent Woods versus The Hotel Nantucket. I'm gonna go The Hotel Nantucket. I feel like I enjoyed these both similarly, but I think I would have more revisions in my inexperienced author-editor mind than I would for The Hotel Nantucket. Fractured versus Wake. In an upset that no one saw coming, I think I'm gonna go Fractured because it was much more forensic focused, whereas Wake was much more character focused in the main character who is living with the aftermath of experiencing something very traumatic. So they both were very enjoyable because like then it has a whole mystery going on too. But I feel like Fractured kept me hooked for longer and more deeply than Wake did. Whiteout versus Crying in H Mart. I'm going with Whiteout. 28 Summers versus The Riviera House. These are two that like I genuinely could see making top 4. However, unfortunately, apparently that's not happening because they're up against each other, but I'm going to go with The Riviera House. And a lot of that's even just the fact that I enjoy 28 Summers so much, but I don't think back to it all that often. I don't feel the need to reread it, whereas The Riviera House, I think I could read once a week and still enjoy it, probably. Home Before Dark versus The Wilder Women. It's gonna go Home Before Dark, and a lot of that is the respect that I give Home Before Dark for really introducing me to a new genre and getting me interested in that new genre, because it was one of the first like scary books that I read. A Thousand Splendid Suns versus Carrie Soto is Back. It's gonna go Carrie Soto is Back, but again, lots of respect for A Thousand Splendid Suns. Book Lovers versus A Flicker in the Dark. Gonna be Book Lovers, but I did enjoy Flicker in the Dark, but it didn't hit me the same way that Book Lovers did. Things We Cannot Say versus The Identicals. Now this is interesting because The Things We Cannot Say I gave 5 stars, but I do not recall the book, which then is like, so how much did it impact me if I don't recall the book? But I did give it 5 stars when I finished it, whereas The Identicals, I think it's gonna be The Things We Cannot Say. Honestly, I feel like it's probably gonna get out next round, but it can last one more far. The Hotel Nantucket versus Fractured. It's gonna be the Hotel Nantucket. I did enjoy Fractured, but I really did. I loved the Hotel Nantucket. And it's very atmospheric, which I think just makes for a pleasant reading experience. The ones that win these are making top 4. Whiteout versus the Riviera House. I'm honestly a little bit surprised Whiteout made it this high, but the Riviera House. Home Before Dark versus Carrie Soto's bag. I'm gonna go Home Before Dark. Book Lovers versus The Things We Cannot Say. Things We Cannot Say does not hold a candle to Book Lovers. It just doesn't. So our top 4 that we're left with: the Hotel Nantucket, the Riviera House, Home Before Dark, Book Lovers. If these are your 4 options, which do you pick as the top book of 2022? I'm curious. Comment it down below. If you haven't read any of them, do that. But based on the ones that you have read, if you have read some of them, what would be your number 1? For me, we're about to find out. Honestly, I think my 2 that I would have like guessed being top seed are going to be the top seed. I thought I might have surprised myself, but apparently I'm not surprising myself. The Riviera House wins over the Hotel Nantucket. It's making top 2 for sure. And then this is gonna stink for me. Book Lovers. I don't know how to pick between these 2. See, part of me feels like the Riviera House is lesser known, and so I almost want to make it my favorite book so that other people will read it, because it really struck an emotional nerve with me. There was a tear. However, Book Lovers really struck an emotional nerve with me, but I feel like it's because it like personally spoke to me. And I mentioned this before, but it's the only book that I have ever felt the urge to annotate and highlight and underline. And so I think that if I'm going to be remaining true to myself, our ultimate winner is gonna have to be Book Lovers. But please read the Riviera House. Like, please read the Riviera House as well. But that's exciting. We have my favorite book of 2022. Number 1, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Now, whenever people are like, oh, what's your favorite book? What would you recommend? I can say Book Lovers by Emily Henry. That's my favorite book. That was my favorite book that I read this year. I have already pre-ordered her next book coming out. And this is like a big change for me because I read People We Meet on Vacation and I just didn't enjoy it all that much. So I wasn't sure headed into Book Lovers. I don't even know why I chose to read it, to be honest, because I didn't have that high of hopes for it. Wow, this was fun. This was fun. And now I know whenever I do like a top books I read in 2022 video, I can actually know what my actual top book was. Anyways, as I'm sure I'm gonna keep ending the videos out with in the ones that are upcoming, thanks for joining me over on this little book channel, booktube, but bookish content that I'm making because I'm very excited about it and I'm really enjoying it. I didn't say this at the beginning. If you don't know me and you're watching this video, I do have another channel that are, you know, vloggy, lifestyle-y, and I kept feeling the desire for them to be booky too, but that was like not my niche over there, and I want a space that I can bookish content, just unfiltered, freely books. And I'm very excited for like reading vlogs coming up. Basically, there's a lot of cool things coming that I at least will find fun. So I hope you choose to stick around while we do that too. Let me know what your favorite book of this year was. If you know, if you don't know, do a little tournament. That was kind of fun. I hope you join me for all that is upcoming, but I will see you next time.